Hey everybody, Dustin DePurak here, columnist Jeremy Price. We're here at Assembly Hall. It's Sunday night, and I don't know if you probably saw this. Darius Latham just decided it was a good time to commit at 10 o'clock on a Sunday to the football team. So, congratulations to Darius, but my man, just find better times, man. You're killing his deadlines. We got to set you straight on some of these things. But anyway, big commit for IU football. We should move on from that. Indiana basketball just pretty much completely rolled tonight, 101 to 53. There was about a 6-minute period where you're thinking, whoa, trap game. It was like 10 to 8. And really, if there's a definition of a trap game, it's something like this. They had obviously 2 big games in Brooklyn, a tournament where they really kind of found out a lot about themselves, and Brooklyn won a championship. We're really coming off, a high there where everything seemed to be, everything was clicking. They, again, a lot of things worked. They had to battle through a lot. Felt a lot better as a team coming out of that. And then Tuesday is North Carolina, and that's the big marquee game in here this year with Kentucky no longer being on the schedule. So there was a lot of reasons to sort of look past this one. And for 6 minutes, it didn't look like they were looking past it. It just looked like they were sort of sluggish coming off of Brooklyn, Thanksgiving, and all those sorts of things. And about, right after that, it got pretty ugly pretty fast.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in a lot of ways, that slow start's not terribly surprising. We've kind of gotten used to seeing that this year a little bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, the slow starts become magnified because everybody thinks that Indiana should win every game, that it should be 20-0 out of the gate immediately because, they're better than this team. Why is it 10-8 right now? It doesn't. A team can hang for 6 minutes. Yeah, exactly. It should automatically be 50-0 before the game even starts. But yeah, no, I mean there was a wee bit of sluggishness, but 6 minutes of sluggishness isn't really anything at all, honestly. But after that, they just eviscerated.
Whatever sluggishness they did have disappeared quickly, and you would have never known it. I mean, they put 50 on the board in the first half, and it was 10-8, and next thing you know, it was
like 32 to 20, 32 to 15 or something like that. I mean, I think that was actually, it was like 32 to 15. At that point, it just snowballed. It just became, just steamrolled everything.
Yeah, I think late in the half I counted up something. It was something like a 33 to 10 run or something.
Something like that. I mean, it ended up being 40 to 11. The rest of the stretch, I think, from the time that it was 10-8, it was 40 to 11. By the end of the half, it was 50 to 19.
Yeah, there you go.
They shot it. They defended. They did everything. Shot 60.3%. Held BallState to 30.9. That's a gap. That's a darn near 30% gap in shooting. That is massive. 42 to 39 in the rebounds. They caused 18 turnovers, turned those into 21 points. Got 40 in the paint. But we're shooting it from everywhere. 7 for 17 for 3. One guy who really got it started, kind of sparked everybody. Will Sheehy didn't have a great tournament in Brooklyn. Didn't have a horrible tournament in Brooklyn. He was 1 for 6 against Georgia. Scored a total of 8 points in the whole tournament. But tonight, once he got in there, it just seemed like he was just bound and determined to get everybody going.
Yeah, and Sheehy, I think he had a pretty good game the last home game, then scuffled a little bit in Brooklyn, and then
a little bit. He wasn't bad. He was 3 for 4 against Georgetown, but it just didn't shoot a lot.
Just not what you'd really expect out of him.
I guess. I mean, somebody's got to not score.
That's true. That's true. But tonight he was active and involved, and he was getting that mid-range jumper look, which is kind of his thing.
Right. Yeah. From 15, he's pretty much automatic. He doesn't. He can shoot the 3 on occasion, and it goes on occasion. But when you get him an open look from about 15 to 18, he's got that. I mean, he loves that baseline jumper. It's right like the shot he hit against VCU. He loves that look, and he really got that going. It seemed like that got everybody going. I mean, there's a lot of these guys that really kind of spark everybody, that when they start having success, everybody's having success. I think, I remember, previous occasions, there were some guys that, I think it was Matt Roth. I think that Tom Crean said that Roth, when Roth hits a 3-pointer, it's like a dunk for everybody else. He's one of those guys that really ignites everybody. But with this group, it can be any of them. Like when Sheehy starts shooting, they get going. When Victor Oladipo starts playing with energy and gets to the rim, they get going. When Hall starts hitting threes, they get going. I mean, Zeller obviously is still and will continue to be the center, the centerpiece and the keystone to all of it. But when any one of those guys get going, when the leaders get going, especially, Jordy, Vic, and Will are probably the 3. If you were to name captains, those are the 3 guys. When those guys get going, it's infectious.
Yeah, and I thought tonight Mo Creek was kind of one of those
that's
extra
true too.
guys that
that's
came
true
on.
Too. Absolutely, Mo fits into that category as well. Not quite as much of a vocal leader, but because of what he's been through, he's got that same sort of, he has that same sort of effect. When he hits threes, people get going, and Mo hit a couple tonight. You hadn't seen much of him in the last couple of games, but he got going a little bit, and he woke everybody up too.
Yeah, two guys, I think Mo Creek and Jeremy Hollowell, two guys that didn't see a lot of minutes in New York and weren't particularly effective.
Hollowell had a rough time in Brooklyn.
Yeah,
but
much better tonight. Seemed much more comfortable, a little more under control, I think, is the big difference for those two, Hollowell in particular.
Yeah, so once it got going again. The defense was amazing. They held, BallState was 5 for 25 in the first half, by the way. It was 20.9. It was a 44% gap in the first half. Let me see here. Sheehy has 19, Hall's had 17, Zeller had 15. Watford posted a very quiet double-double at 11 and 10. Not really very quiet because at that point, stats were just rolling up. But I thought what was interesting about this game is once they, one thing, they kept the intensity up in the second half. They kept pushing. It really became a practice at that point that Cream was kind of challenging to make little runs and say, okay, like on this free throw, we're running this play or we're running that play. Like just keep it going. Don't let up. Don't hold back, play like a practice. Play like you can't take a possession off. Let's not, use this as let's not get out of sync with this game. Let's not let this take us out of a rhythm. But what I thought they also did was Tim Buckley didn't like to use the word experiment when I asked him about it. Tom Crean didn't talk to us today. Tim Buckley did. He's a BallState, former BallState coach. That probably was somewhat of a factor in that. But he said, I don't like to use the word experimenting necessarily, but we wanted to expand people's games, and you could call it either way. But they had one lineup out there where there was no point guard. They've got 3 point guards on this team, or guys that can play point guard, run the offense, and none of those guys were out there. Jordy Hulls, Yogi Ferrell, Remy Abel, all on the bench. Obviously, Taylor Ware's another guy that could play point guard if it got really, really necessary too. But they put Victor Oladipo out there and said, Vic, learn how to run an offense. And it seemed like, it took a while. There was some sloppiness. There were some times he lost the handle, but it seemed like at least it got him some experience. It was literally an all-wing lineup. There were no real forwards. I think Watford and Zeller were both on the bench as well. It was just all-wing guys, and they had their moments, I guess.
Yeah, the whole second half was, like you said, just kind of an interesting take on different lineups, different approaches. Put it in some press, which I would think that we're going to see some more of down the road.
Sure,
more
absolutely,
than likely.
Absolutely.
Even they played a little bit of the zone defense that we saw a lot in Brooklyn. Played a little bit of that in the second half. Had some 4-wing, 5-wing lineups, and then went back to having like 3 point guards in the game together with Abel Hulls.
Exactly. There was Abel Hulls, and it was like no point guards and all point guards.
Yeah.
How are you guys going to do with that? And it just seemed like they did a lot to sort of shift up their perspectives and try to just find out what worked. I guess let's kind of spin this forward. Obviously, we can only spend so much time talking about 101 to 53. You're from North Carolina. There may have been a time where you rooted for North Carolina. Whatever. This team pretty well. Basically, you know a good bit about the Indiana team that they're going to face. What do you think are the keys to this game? Keys to tomorrow's game? What have you seen from Indiana to so far that gives you an idea of how they can match up in this one?
Well, I think this is a really interesting matchup because North Carolina, at least as Indiana's constituted right now, does still have more depth on the front line than Indiana does. But that's not really the strength of this North Carolina team as opposed to last year when you had a Hinson and a Zeller, guys like that.
Barnes and everybody.
This team is actually, the strength is in the backcourt and the wing spots. You've got Dexter Strickland back from ACL injury. I think he and Hulls may match up some. He and Farrell could match up some. Those two matching up, two of the quickest guys probably in college basketball.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's going to be interesting. That's going to be just flying down the court. Now, they played against each other a little bit. There was a matchup between those two guys in Fort Wayne. I didn't watch that game. I left before that game, but I think they actually used Ron Patterson on him for that. The departed Ron. Now going to be signing at Syracuse, or did sign at Syracuse, I presume. But Ron Patterson was able to swallow Page up pretty good in that game. That was kind of one of his sort of big moments. I don't know how much Yogi did or did not cover him, but it'll be interesting to see. I mean, there's just two extremely quick guys. I think they're both about 5'11". Yogi's listed at 6 foot. I don't know that I believe it. But they're both really, really fast, and that and Tim Buckley said you're going to need a neck brace today, and that's probably what it's going to be like. Because those guys can really, really push it, and there's going to be a really fast pace in this game.
Yeah, definitely, and there's depth. North Carolina has depth on the wings, just as Indiana does. Bullock and McDonald and Tokoto and those guys,
Tokoto.
It's going to be. I think it's going to be a wave of basketball players and athletes both. Going up and down the court on Tuesday night. The big thing, I think, is the fact that this game is here at Assembly Hall is going to be a problem for North Carolina. I mean, this is a team that's coming off of 3 games in Maui last week,
Right.
They probably went home for a couple days. Now they're going back on the road.
And a humbling one against Butler too. I mean that North Carolina did not found out something very rough about itself against Butler. They got outworked.
They didn't handle Butler's energy. They didn't handle Butler's physicality in that game well at all.
Right.
And that's something they're going to have to improve upon if they don't want to be run out of here on Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Because there's obviously going to be a buzz in this place.
Yeah. No. I think obviously, I don't think you can never recreate Kentucky. I mean, there's many people said last year, well, Ohio State was like Kentucky, or the Michigan State game was like Kentucky. Nothing was like Kentucky. I don't think anything will ever be like Kentucky ever again anywhere, honestly. But this is going to be pretty, this is going to be somewhere in the direction of that level, because this is the marquee game. This is the biggest thing that this arena is going to see until at least conference play, and it's North Carolina. I mean, whether or not North Carolina is as good this year as Michigan or Ohio State doesn't really matter. It's North Carolina. It's one of those blue bloods that Indiana judges itself against. As because those are as good as Michigan, Ohio State might be right now. Michigan State has been in the last decade or whatever. Indiana and North Carolina are in that the highest what's the word I'm looking for? The highest parts of this hierarchy. What am I trying to say here? Echelon. I'm stealing something else. Pantheon. Thank you. That was it. I was looking for something Greek. But those are the true Pantheon teams, with those guys in Kansas and Kentucky and Duke and UCLA, Carolina, Indiana. They're in that group, and this place is going to be rocking because of that. And North Carolina is going to have to deal with that, but Indiana is going to also have to deal with size. Whether or not that's North Carolina's strength or not, they're going to have to deal with it, and probably going to have to see some of that zone. I think they were able to do it against Georgetown. I don't think anyone's going to play as big as Georgetown does across the board, because not many people want to do that. But it'll be interesting to see how much of that you see. How do they counter, what North Carolina has? It's going to be a real interesting one. It's going to find out a lot about this Indiana team. So, anyway, guys, thank you.